All right, let's set the scene. It's September 1944, and if you're German General Hassan Montufil, you're looking at a situation that holds a promise you'd almost forgotten about: the taste of victory. You've got a solid plan, a whole brigade of brand new tanks, and an American enemy that's stretched way too thin. On paper, it's absolutely the perfect setup for a devastating counterattack.
And that right there, that's the mystery we're going to unravel. The Germans had the superior tanks, they had the element of complete surprise, and they had a powerful, concentrated force. So how in the world did a plan that looked flawless on paper, with clearly better steel, end up as one of the most lopsided, catastrophic defeats of the entire war?
You know, to really get what should have happened, you have to appreciate the massive technological gap we're talking about here. The German Panther, it was an absolute beast. Its cannon could kill an American Sherman from 2,000 meters away. That's well outside the Sherman's own range. And its sloped frontal armor, it could just shrug off American shells. This wasn't supposed to be a fair fight at all. On paper, it was a total mismatch.
And General Montufil? He knew it. This guy wasn't some wild-eyed fanatic. He was a stone-cold professional, a master of tank warfare. And as he looked at his maps, at his forces, and at the enemy's position, he was convinced he was holding an unbeatable hand. He was ready to just slice right through General Patton's exposed flank.
And what a hand it was. The 1113th Panzer Brigade. This was Germany's new armored fist. And we're not talking about some worn-out unit pulled from another front. No, these were Hitler's new fire brigades. 58 brand new Panther tanks, so fresh from the factory that some crews were still figuring out the controls on the way to the battle. They had plenty of fuel, a crystal-clear objective, and they had total surprise. The Americans had absolutely no idea they were even there.
But then, on the morning of the attack, something happened that no general, no matter how brilliant, could ever plan for. The first crack in this perfect German plan wasn't an enemy shell. It was the weather.
We're talking about a thick, heavy, pea soup fog that just smothered the entire battlefield. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Tank drivers could barely even see the tank right in front of them. And this wasn't just some minor inconvenience, you know? This was a catastrophic game changer.
You have to remember, the Panther's whole reason for being, its entire design philosophy, was built around this one single advantage: the ability to kill from a distance, to be a sniper that could outrange anything the enemy had.
And just like that, poof, the fog completely erased it. You can't shoot what you can't see, right? That 2,000-meter kill shot was now worthless. So that long-range duel the Germans were planning on, yeah, that was out. This battle just became a chaotic, brutal, close-quarters brawl, a knife fight in a phone booth, and that's a fight the Germans were not ready for.
See, the thing is, the fog didn't just blind the Germans. It actually played directly into the hands of a totally different American way of fighting. This wasn't just tank versus tank anymore. This was a clash of philosophies. This was wolves versus fortresses.
The German doctrine was all about the fortress. They built their tanks like medieval knights in shining armor, heavy, thick plating, designed to take a punch, absorb the hit, and keep advancing in a rigid, powerful formation. Their strength was in their steel.
The Americans, they did the exact opposite. They weren't building mobile fortresses. They were training hunters. You can see their philosophy in vehicles like the M18 Hellcat, a tank destroyer. It wasn't designed to go toe-to-toe with the Panther. The goal wasn't to survive a hit. The goal was to never be there when the hit arrived. It was all about incredible speed, constant relocation, and fighting like a pack of wolves. Get this, 55 miles per hour. The Hellcat was basically a cannon strapped to a radial aircraft engine. It was insanely fast, the fastest armored vehicle of the war. It could literally run circles around a heavy Panther. Now, to a German tanker, its armor was a complete joke, paper thin. But they totally missed the point. For the Hellcat, speed was its armor.
And this incredible speed led to this lethal tactic called shoot and scoot. In that dense fog, the Hellcat crews would just listen for the rumble of the German engines. They'd use their speed to get on the Panther's flank, fire one shot into its weaker side armor, and then just disappear back into the mist before the Panther's slow, heavy turret could even begin to turn towards them. They turned the fog into their single greatest weapon.
But look, this battle wasn't just won by fast-moving vehicles. The real knockout blow, the thing that truly turned the tide, came from something the Germans couldn't see at all: the invisible systems of the American war machine.
One of the most incredible of these systems was an artillery tactic called time on target. Now, forget what you think you know about artillery, with shells landing one after another. This was different. This was pure mathematics as a weapon. A central command would calculate the flight time for shells from multiple artillery batteries miles apart. Then they'd order them to fire at precisely different moments, so that every single shell traveling on a different path arrived on the target at the exact same instant.
So, when the fog lifted for just a moment, American spotter planes called this rain of fire down on the German columns. There was no warning. 1 second, German infantry were moving up with their tanks. The next, the very air above them just disintegrated as dozens of shells exploded at once. Now, this didn't even scratch the Panthers' armor, but it did something far worse. It stripped them of their infantry support, it took away their eyes and ears, leaving the tanks blind, alone, and completely vulnerable.
And that brings us to the ultimate decisive system, logistics. Just look at this chart. It tells the whole story. Germany loses 50 Panthers in the battle, and they can't replace a single one. The US loses 25 tanks and other vehicles, and replaces all of them and then some while the battle is still going on.
This really highlights what the word shortage meant for each army. When a German Panther ran out of fuel or broke a track, the crew often had no choice but to destroy it and walk away. That tank was a permanent loss. When an American Sherman had the exact same problem, the crew just called on the radio for a fuel truck or a recovery vehicle. That tank was back in the fight in a matter of hours.
So, in the end, this wasn't just a battle of tanks. It was a battle of entire industrial systems. And when you look at the final, brutal numbers, it becomes painfully clear which system came out on top. The 113th Panzer Brigade started with 58 of the world's most advanced tanks. By the end of the fight, only 8 were left. The unit effectively ceased to exist. In contrast, the American force that fought them actually increased its strength during the battle as replacements just kept flowing in. This wasn't a battle, it was an industrial execution.
There's this quote from the source material that just perfectly sums up the entire thing. The Germans built warrior knights in shining armor. The Americans built a factory that moved at 50 miles per hour, and in the fog of Lorraine, the factory won.
Ultimately, the lesson of Arracourt is crystal clear. It proved that having the single most superior weapon on the battlefield means absolutely nothing if it can't see, if it can't move, if it's all alone, and, most importantly, if you can't build another one to replace it when it's gone.
And that leaves us for the final question to think about. It's a question Arracourt forces us to ask, and it's just as relevant today as it was in 1944. In the grand calculus of conflict, what's truly more powerful? The perfect warrior in shining armor, or the factory that builds him, fuels him, and sends another one when he falls?